Okay, so printers you spending part of the time here at the machine and part of the time over here on the computer. You can use either computer here, or actually you can send stuff off your laptop if you're on the Fox.Build network. But most people end up using this one. It's just closest and most convenient. So the first thing is to turn it on. I'm going to use it. There's a whole row of switches over here. The top one is the main power, so we usually just leave the other ones on. There's one for the fan, one for the water pump, one for the air pump. So to turn it on, you basically just hit that. Then the other thing you need to do is turn on the vent fan. There's one here, and just turn it just until it clicks. You know, don't crank it all the way, because the further you crank it, the slower it goes. And then there's a second vent, which is way out here by the, and it's the same story. Just click it till it comes on. And it vents the room next to the laser cutter, because they both have the same vent system up in the attic. And the next thing you're going to want to do, you have to set the focus light. And all this stuff under here is up for grabs. Basically put it in here on the bed. Then you can move the axis around here with the control pad. So I'm going to go back and left. That's upper left corner. But anyways, this is the top left corner as far as you can go. So you can start there. And that'll map on the computer to this point right here, top left corner. So from there, what we need to do, we need to set the height so that the laser focuses on the material. And that's what this little thing is for. It's a height gauge, and it goes tall ways. So put this in here, and you see it doesn't fit. So there's a switch over here, raises it up and down. Push down, the bed goes down. Now I've gone too far. That's just about right. So now I've got the height set, basically in the corner. Close the thing up. This piece hangs right here on this magnet. Then over here, we use what's called RDworks. It's this icon down here. I've already opened it up. And you can design in RDworks with these things here. You can do line, rectangles, circles. I'm going to do this little square here. And you'll see that it's outlined in black. So I can zoom in. Right now, you can see it's metric, because this is 12 by 20 inches. So, this is about 20 some millimeters square. And I can do do a piece of text. So I just put the word Fox in there. I'm going to try and sort of center it up here. And you'll notice they're all black. Over here I have a thing that says layer, scan, and it's black. But what I really want to do, I want to make the Fox, I'm going to just pick some color. I'll go with blue, it's the next one. And you see here it gave me a new layer. So what I want to do actually is on the Fox, I want to do a scan. So I'll double click here, and it's blue layer. I do want to output it. Speed 100 millimeters per second. That's reasonable for a scan. That's actually maybe slow. I'm going to go to 150. Oops. And down here, power 15%. We're going to try that. That may be just fine. Sometimes you have to play around with it, especially if you're looking at plastic versus wood, hardwoods versus softwoods. You may need to do some experimenting, and that's where all the stuff that's under the counter there comes into play. Now if I go select the box outline, you can see it's highlighted the black layer. Oops, I forgot that it says scan. What I really want to do, I want to cut the box. So I'm going to get a little square, it's cut out, and the word Fox is going to be engraved in the surface. So I have these backwards right now. So if I go double click on the scan and pick processing mode, I can pick cut for the black layer. And double click on cut here, and I'm going to go to scan, save that. And now I'm basically ready to make a cut, except I forgot to check the speeds. Here we got 25 millimeters per second at 25% power. I've got a pretty thick piece of plastic, so I'm going to go with 60% power. When you get above 60, it kind of tapers off. Like 70 gives you a little bit more than 60, but 60 gives you a bunch more over 50 than 60 to 70 does. And I like to keep it under 80% because that keeps our tube from getting old. But I'm going to go much slower because I want to cut all the way through. So I'm going to go 5 millimeters a second. And all this is just based on you're around with it some. So, all right, so now ready to cut at 5 and 60%. And scan at 150 millimeters and 15%. Now what I can do, get ready to send it. Here there's a button that says start, but the first thing I want to check is position, and I'm going from current position. You can also pick anchor point machine 0, which is where it is now, or an absolute coordinate. I've never found a reason why I needed to use any of those other than current position. But there are cases where that is useful. So now I'll just click start, and it didn't like it. So what did it say? It said not enough extend space. What that means, when it's doing the scan, it's moving back and forth, and it needs room to slow down. You know, it takes so many feet to break, and I'm scanning too close to the limit of where it can go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to move it over to the right a little bit. And see it here. Move it over to the right, just give it a little more room to have the runoff. And I'll try it again. Now it's going. Oh, here's the other thing I didn't mention. It's doing the outline first. And that's because that's the order I got them here. Did not do the scan. I don't understand. Oh, well, it's probably because I selected just the box here. So I'm going to do it again. Select everything. Just hit start. It's in the same place, so it ought to outline the same box. I don't know if I have enough power. Yeah, it looks like I have enough power to get all the way through in 2 passes. And it's done. See it? It made a nice cut. Put the word Fox in there. And so, a member that asked me what power and speed do I need to cut 1/4 inch acrylic, I can tell them the cut 5 millimeters a second and 60% power is sufficient. But that's the basics of doing a cut. Now you can put big things in here by lowering the bed way down. You can engrave on the top of a box, for example. The other thing, you can import files. That's what you're probably most likely going to want to do. Mm-hmm. So I've got everything selected. I'm just going to delete. And then you can go to File, Open. I want to save that really. And, I've got my own folder here on the desktop, and this is true of all the Fox.Build computers. If you want to make your own files here, just put a folder with your name on the desktop somewhere and then drop your files inside that. So let's see what I got here. This is one I saved from within RDworks. You can also import. Alright, so I had a Corvette thing I was going to do. So on this one, it was going to scan the black and then cut where the red line is to cut it out. It'll import just about anything you would want to. If you go down to import, you can see I've got a bunch of PNGs and all that kind. But the thing that's really important here is the file types that it supports, and it's DXF is really popular. A bunch of members use Adobe Illustrator files. You can do a PDF. SVG is pretty popular. And then you can scan images, JPEGs, BMPs, that kind of thing. Those take a lot of manipulation to actually get nice pictures, but if you spend the time and play around enough, you can get some really beautiful things made on the laser, do engravings and that kind of stuff. So that's the other thing. It's good to know that you can import just about any file type that you might likely come across. There is, occasionally you'll come in here and it'll all be in Chinese. And it just decides to do that on its own. So you go to System Setting, I think it is, and I remember which thing it was. Oh, here on the Import Export one, you may want to use this down here, the unit types. So if you're importing like a DXF or an SVG in particular, you have to tell it what the units are. So it might be millimeters or it might be inch. Those are the two choices you have. So if you pull something in and it blows off the page or it's microscopic, you probably got the wrong units selected in here. So you come in here and change the other units. But you can hunt around and Google is actually the thing to help you get out of that, because it tells you go over to menu item number 5 and drop down 3 and click it, and then you switch the language for you. Like I said, off the top of my head, I don't remember because it's pretty rare that happens, but it's very confusing when it does. So you can basically you could do up to however many colors are down here. I think there's 16. So that's how many different cut and scan settings you can have. You can also adjust on the scan. If I go back over here and double click this, you can adjust the interval. So what scan's doing is like a dot matrix printer. It's blast, move, blast, move, blast, move. So you're really just hitting dots. And you can change this. Right now they're a tenth of a millimeter apart. You can space them closer together, get a little bit finer resolution. It'll take a lot longer to go. So to play around with that, you can also do the scan mode. This says X swing. That means it's going to scan like this. If you put it in Y swing, it'll go this way. And then the unilateral ones, when it only goes across, left to right, top to bottom. It doesn't scan in both directions. I'm not aware of a reason where you want the unilateral stuff, but there must be something or they wouldn't allow it. So, I would encourage you to grab some scrap play around with it, experiment. Those are the easiest, fastest ways to figure out, what things do what. There are some sample things. I think these were mostly made though on the other laser, but you get the idea here that 14 millimeters per second and 100% power knocked a hole in it on a piece of walnut, 1/4 inch. I don't think that's 1/4 inch, but 1/8 inch walnut. And then here's a different board. Here's plastic. You can see that people have tried a variety of things on the full spectrum. And so this is a piece of cardboard. So you can look at these just to get a rough idea, maybe a starting point, or go on Slack and ask.
Is that out there?
Which I don't know. I think because it was done on that machine, it's somewhere else. But I'm not sure.
Right.
Then basically it's the reverse process. Delete file or whatever. Shut off RDworks. Then turn the power off here, and turn off the fans. And the key thing is remember to fan its way out there because that's easy to forget.
So what not to use?
Yes, yeah. These things on this list are basically release poisonous gases like chlorine and things like that. So yeah, don't try and cut any of those things. We can't cut metals in this one. We supposedly can engrave on stainless steel if you put mustard on it. I have not tried this, but there's something about the mustard and the surface of the stainless that it'll make it etch. There are also some other things you can buy to do, like engraving on the surface of something, like aluminum, and you can also buy these things, which Adam just donated. They're business cards. They're aluminum, but they're coated.
Yeah.
And what you can do is burn the coating off. So they make pretty cool little business cards.
So then potentially you could burn the paint off of a Yeti cooler. You could do a scan, low power, just to etch the paint, to get the paint off.
Yeah, you could probably do that.
Okay.
Which brings up another good point. We have the rotary table. The way that works, you can set that in here on top. But again, you have to lower it so the round thing you're engraving is at the right height below the laser.
Mm-hmm.
And then this cable plugs in here. So you unplug this one, plug this one in, and it exchanges Y. So instead of going in this direction, it rotates.
Okay.
So it'll go back and forth this way, but I think that's why. And then the other axis is the rotational axis.
Okay.
So it gets tricky to use if you got something that's tapered. So I've seen guys do a variety of different things, trying to hold one end up so that the thing is, the surface you're lasering is parallel with the bed. Because otherwise, as you get down the hill, it's out of focus, and eventually it doesn't even do anything. It gets too far out of focus.
Okay.
And that's the other thing. Keep in mind, if things just aren't working like you think they should, double check your height. And remember, it's the tall way, because that's not the way that people intuitively think it should go. And that is a significant thing. It makes a big difference if it's way out of focus. I guess the one other thing I should point out is if you're cutting small pieces out of something, they'll fall down in the honeycomb. So what you can do then, you can lower the bed and lift the honeycomb. It just sits in here up, and there's a vacuum down here. You can vacuum all the chunks out. Because what happens then is somebody else will come in if you don't, and the bed will get up on top of it, on a little piece, and now it's not flat. And that just screws up all the focus. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I say it's pretty easy to do, pretty easy to use. I think experimenting is your best bet, and we've got lots to experiment with.
Okay.